Hey, and welcome to The Dana Show, where we discuss in English day-to-day life of Israeli citizens, our concerns and aspirations for the country, and everything in between. I'm your host, Dana Kaplan, and we're so glad that you can join us. So I have a unique opportunity to be in Tekoa today and to meet with you, Sherri Mandell. Thank you so much for being on the show, on The Dana Show.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It's a real pleasure to meet you. I think everybody in this country is going through a really difficult time right now, and especially as mothers, I think all of us have this fear. Me personally, I have this guilt, about moving to Israel. And I have two boys that are serving in the army, and I wanted to talk to you about it because it's kind of selfish on my part, but because you've been through such a difficult experience, I feel like I can turn to you and get your advice on how to deal with the current situation. So let's go back a little bit. 30 years, let's say, when you moved to Israel. Can you tell me what made you move here? I know you have an interesting story.
Well, I met my husband here originally.
Right.
Like, I had no connection to Zionism, no background in Judaism, even though I was Jewish. Like, I had never heard about Shabbat. I was just even though I grew up with all Jewish people, and my elementary school was all Jewish, but it was a public school.
Okay.
So we never talked about Judaism.
Where are you from?
Long Island.
In Long Island.
And
okay.
Everybody went to Hebrew school, but I didn't go. My parents didn't send me. So I knew nothing about Judaism. And I kind of absorbed some of not that there was blatant anti-Semitism, but there was definitely sort of latent anti-Semitism. So I didn't really ever want to go out with a Jewish guy. I mean, a lot of my friends the girlfriends were Jewish, but I only went out with Jewish guys. I mean, non-Jewish guys. And then I had a friend here, but I was always interested in Israel.
In Israel?
Yeah.
Do you read about it in the news and stuff like that?
No, I didn't read about it in the news. I didn't even know when the wars were going on.
Oh, really?
Like 67. It didn't, 73. It didn't concern me. I didn't. And you know what? I'm like most Jews in America.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way most Jews in America, maybe not this moment, but at least for most of the time, people who aren't connected to Judaism don't connect to Israel either. It's not like they don't feel like that's their place. But I just had a kind of dissatisfaction with ordinary life. Like, I just didn't feel like it was enough to just go to college and get married and get a job and have kids. Like, I felt like something was missing, and I kind of went on a search. And then when I finally got to Israel and I started learning about Judaism, I thought, this is unbelievable. I had no idea that Judaism had so much depth and richness and beauty.
How did you get into learning about Judaism? Do you remember?
Yeah, because I was staying with my friend Ginny Medved at that point, and they were getting divorced. So I had just come to visit her, so I had to leave because they needed to fight it out, and they didn't want me there. So they told me about this program in Sfat, Livnot Lihibanot.
Mm-hmm. I was there.
So, you went on it?
No, but I spent a Shabbat in Sfat, and I stayed in their house.
Right.
Because their son is married to my sister's husband's sister. We have a family connection now.
That's really
I stayed
nice.
there once for Rosh Hashanah by myself.
Yeah, so I started learning there.
Okay.
But I think it wasn't until then I met my husband, and he was religious. And he encouraged me to go learn in a yeshiva,
okay,
in a women's midrashah. And they put me in like the highest class, even though I didn't speak, I had no Hebrew. I couldn't read any Hebrew. But I remember like learning with this rabbi and the other women. And it was just really fascinating because I saw that learning also was that they used a lot of symbolism in learning, in the commentary, that it wasn't flat at all. And also I liked the way they learned, that it was in Hevruta, that it was, in pairs. And I love language and I love stories. So that's what I found there.
Yeah. I think that I want to continue with this, but from your book that I read, The Blessings of Broken Heart, you bring a lot of imagery and symbolism in the book, and you talk about, crickets and birds and deer and all these different midrashim and stuff. So now it's nice to hear where the sources where you got these things from.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that book, after my son was murdered, and he was murdered by terrorists in 2001. He was 13. He was my oldest son. We had only been in Israel for 5 years. So, of course, I was totally broken. And that brokenness is so shattering that, I felt like I had died. Like I wanted to die, but I didn't. And
I want to get back to the issue of Koby. I want to get into it, but I want to talk a little bit about the before and how you got to Tekoa.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
So you were learning.
Yeah.
And then
I got married.
And you got married. And you got married, and you moved right away to Tekoa?
No, when I met my husband and we got married, I said to him, I just came to Israel as a tourist. And all of a sudden I'm here for 2 years and I'm having babies. And I said, I'm not ready to be Israeli. I want to go back to America. Like, my family's in America. I don't have any family here.
You had no intention of staying here?
No.
Okay.
No, none. I never heard the word Aliyah. I had no idea what it was. So, but I had 2 kids, and then I just said to Seth, I really want to go back. I don't want to stay here. So he studied to become a rabbi here, and we got the idea that he would go become a Hillel rabbi in America. So we went back to America, and he was the Hillel rabbi at Penn State and then at the University of Maryland.
Oh, wow.
And I taught writing at those places. So, I mean, it was a nice life, but it wasn't enough for my husband. Like, so it was enough for me. I was happy with it.
So he was the force that brought you back?
Yeah, he always wanted to come back, and I didn't. But then once we made Aliyah again in 96, I with 4 kids, and the oldest was in 4th grade, and having to just acclimate to this country and get everything organized for the children. And I felt like I can't go back to America again. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard for the kids to adapt, going back and forth.
Right.
Yeah. When I made Aliyah when I just got married, before I had children. And it was the best decision I ever made, because I know I have a lot of friends who've come with kids, older kids, younger, and they said it's really hard because for you yourself, it must have been hard. And then to get the kids acclimated as well, and school and friends and stuff, it's a little bit more challenging.
I couldn't read their homework. I didn't know when they got the report card, it was like 1 through 10. I didn't know which was good or bad. I'm like, maybe 1 is the best,
right? Or
10 is the best. Right. I don't know. And also, it was before like cell phones and WhatsApp, and it wasn't like you could just look on it. Well, it wouldn't have helped me anyway because it would have been in Hebrew.
Yeah. But I moved back around the same time. I moved here the same time as you. I moved in 97. There was no internet when I moved here. No,
it was coming in.
It was coming in, but it was like the kind that you had to plug, and it was making all the noise, and it wasn't easy to get. And I remember going through all the government offices, and I would go there on a Wednesday, and they would tell me that they're closed on Wednesday from 2 to 4, and I'd have to take a bus back.
Yeah.
It was a different experience than now.
Yeah, it was like the olden days compared to today in terms of communication.
Yeah.
Because I remember my father was sick when we made Aliyah, and he unfortunately died in 97, like right after we made Aliyah. But I would call him, and the calls were $1 a minute, or even $2 a minute. And I couldn't afford it, but of course I still did it. But everything was like so impossible then.
Yeah. So Tekoa. How did you get here?
We thought we were going to move to Tzfat,
Mm-hmm.
but then we stayed with a friend of mine from college, another friend of mine in Alon Shvut,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody came for Sudah Shlishit who was from Tzfat, and he told us that it was not so easy there, that there was a lot of infighting between like the Haredim and the Hasidim and the modern Orthodox and the secular. I don't know, he really dissuaded us.
Mm-hmm.
And then we would have had to take a taxi there because we had all our bags with us. We hadn't actually made Aliyah. Like we still had our things in America. But for us to get to Tzfat was going to cost us like over $400. So we felt like we really can't go investigate if we're going to like it or not. So we decided just to kind of stay put in Gush Etzion.
Mm-hmm.
And we were in Efrat for 2 years.
Oh.
But then there were no apartments available in Efrat
Mm-hmm.
after 2 years. And we heard that they were building here. So my husband, we took a look at it, and I was really afraid of the road here. But
what was the neighborhood like? Was it like now, like that there are houses, or was it more?
No, it was houses, but it was much smaller. Like now, there were 200 families
Mm-hmm.
here, less than 200 families. And everybody knew each other, and everybody hung out together. Like there was no ageism because we didn't have enough people,
Mm-hmm.
let's say English speakers. So there were, like the 50-year-olds were friendly with the 30-year-olds and the 20-year-olds. Like we didn't have street names. We didn't have deliveries, It wasn't like...
Now you have deliveries that come here? You can order anything you want and they come here?
Yes, you can. First of all, you can get from the grocery store here, from, Rami Levy and Super Sol. And you can get deliveries from Amazon
Mm-hmm.
and from America and a little bit of food. Yeah.
I saw at the entrance to the Yishuv, is Tekoa
Yeah,
Yishuv,
yeah.
they have mailboxes there. Do you have your individual mailbox in
Yeah.
your house, or you have to go there?
No, you don't get a mailbox.
No?
No.
Okay, no, because I remember when I made Aliyah, my ex-in-laws lived in Kochav Yair, and they didn't have mail coming to their house. They had to go pick it up
Yeah,
from
that's
somewhere.
what I mean. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, so you have to go there.
Oh, yeah. You have to pick up your mail.
You have to pick up
Yeah,
your
you
mail.
don't get personal mail.
Is this the house that you moved into when you moved here?
No.
How long have you been here in this house?
Like 15 years.
Uh-huh.
But no, this is the house we bought, like the foundation.
Mm-hmm.
But then as we moved here, it turned out that the Kablan, the contractor, was corrupt and...
Shocking. Shocking.
And all these houses went into receivership.
Uh-huh.
So you couldn't build. So we were in rentals for a really long time.
Aye.
So we lived in a few rentals before we moved here. And we built this house, but nothing is so smooth here.
Nothing is smooth here, period. Period. So did the kids like it when you moved here? Were they happy here in the beginning?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, this was a very good place because, like, even when we were just unpacking the car when we moved here, like the little kids came over and they were like, "Can we help you? What can we do?" And the kids made friends right away. And it was like a small place. So kids reach out to the other kids.
Was there only one school here?
Oh, yeah. It was a teeny school. It was only like 100 kids in the whole school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
now there's over 100 kids in each class, at least. But then and they were in caravans, the school.
Oh, wow.
It was like more like Little House on the Prairie.
And how did you feel about that? Was it hard for you to acclimate to living here?
No, it wasn't hard to acclimate because I moved with a few English speakers. Okay. And also the people here are really like very kind people.
Mm-hmm.
And I just met a few people who have been my friends for all these years. And I don't know, there's just a different vibe here. It's like, I don't know now, but then we could have been like Boulder, Colorado, except nobody likes us because we live in a settlement.
Right.
But the people, the vibe of the people was very like non-materialistic and spiritual and grounded and learning. And well, first of all, not everybody's religious here.
Right.
It's called a mixed community. So it's like secular and religious together. Also, it was started by Russian refuseniks. So it had so much diversity here because there were Russians and French and Brazil and people from Afghanistan, like all this mixture in Britain that like I found really attractive.
Yeah. And Tekoa was like a place where Amos, the Navi, lived here.
Yeah, he prophesied from here.
From here, yeah. And you also talked about the cave, and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, they say that maybe his cave was here. It's like
our Rabbi Froman, he used to say that he thought his cave was here, but nobody else believes that. But I do. Because of what happened.
Yeah. You want to talk a little bit about what happened?
Yeah. So Koby was in 8th grade. He was my oldest. He was 13. And he was like a very quick, like smart person. And he decided that he was going to cut school because this wadi, this canyon that's nearby.
Which direction is it in?
That way. It's only like, a 5-minute walk to the...
Is it safe to go there now?
I mean, it's relatively safe, but I wouldn't go without a gun.
Okay.
Just because anything can happen.
Yeah.
All the kids go down to the wadi. And since we were new, he didn't know the wadi. So he knew it a little, but he wanted to go down there and explore because it's got all kinds of caves and it has the ruins of a monastery. It has all these paths and it's really exquisitely beautiful. So he and his friend, Yosef Ishran, they decided to cut school and they went down there. It was during the Intifada. We had told him not to do it, not to go anywhere in the wadi by himself. And they went down there during the day and they never came home. They were beaten to death with rocks by terrorists. So.
You remember how you felt on that day?
Oh yeah, I wanted to die. Yeah. It was like I went into another world. This world was over for me. There was, except for my family. I had my kids and my husband and like right away, my husband, I looked at him. I said, what are we going to do? And he said, we have 3 other kids and we're not going to let the terrorists kill them, kill our family. So right away, he already was like holding it together.
The Sherri before and the Sherri after, they're 2 different people?
Well, there are a lot of similarities because like I always like to have fun. So it's like I never stopped having fun, even when I was broken. But first of all, it's been 23 years.
Yeah, I know.
So I'm a different person anyway. Right. I would be a different person anyway.
Yeah.
And also living in Israel for this long changes you. But I think, like through our foundation, we're working with a lot of widows from the war and bereaved mothers from the war. Mm-hmm. So we had a retreat 2 weeks ago for 70 widows for 2 days. And I spoke to them first. And I told them that in Judaism, we say, Baruch Dayan Ha'emet, when somebody dies, that God is the judge of truth. But I said that also applies to us, to the bereaved families. Because once you are struck with this kind of death, you have a truth. You have a truth about life. Like, that you're not in control. That everyone knows terrible things happen. But some things you can only know inside, like in your body, because you've experienced it. But I said, but that truth also can give them a wisdom. because you also know what's important and what's not important. And also it sort of slices through your life, but it slices through your language too and your conversation. Because even now I don't have a lot of patience sometimes for the things people talk about.
Yeah.
And so it enhances like that, a kind of pursuit of something with depth, and also wanting wisdom. Like I felt after Koby's death that I was like on part of a spiritual mystery, and that I was talking to one of the widows, and we said how part of the problem with this murder and death is you can't get the person back. Like this widow said, she knew the minute they told her he was dead that she couldn't change it.
It's so final.
Yeah, everything else in life you can work on.
Right.
You can always be in more of a process with it, and you can try to find a way to make it a little bit better. Or if you can't be cured, you can still find healing, let's say. But with this, it's like you're really stuck with this closed door, So I felt like that year, even though the door was closed, I kept getting all of these clues and these mysteries and I had like a mystical experience. And like, I wasn't that kind of person at all. I went to Cornell, I good in math. Like, I was a poet. Like, I always liked metaphor.
Right.
And so I felt like God kept sending me these like metaphors to unravel.
What I noticed in the book is that it seemed to me that you had a lot of emunah. That you thought when you were describing the year, you always talked about it in reference to God wanted this to happen, or God was sending me this sign, or God was sending me this sign. It was interesting to me that you were using God and Judaism as a strength.
Yeah.
And you said before you weren't particularly religious, you didn't have a background. So where did your emunah, your faith, come from? Was it your only option at the time? Because I think you made a statement about how emunah begins where reason ends. Mm-hmm. Right? It was like Steinsaltz or said something like that. And
I think it's Rev Soloveitchik.
Or Soloveitchik, right?
Yeah.
How did that work for you?
Well, at first I didn't have the faith, and I was just broken. But I trained. I became a pastoral counselor.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
When was that?
Like in 2005.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I have a whole book about that.
Oh, okay,
too.
fine.
A book on everything.
Okay.
So in pastoral counseling, one of the things we learned is that sometimes when people feel like God has deserted them, that people become God's representative. And that's really what happened to me, that I had all these people around me who were so generous and so giving and just didn't let me alone. And also my husband, we're not like this lovey-dovey couple, but after Koby was killed, it was like we were the same person. Like we went through it together. And so he also gave me a lot of support. And then I started having these, I would almost say, visitations with like the crickets the first month, like just things that happened that I guess I wanted to find meaning in them, but they were so big, like the whole story with the birds, that I would literally be walking down the street and like a bird would just fall down dead in front of me, fall onto the ground in front of me, or that a bird got onto my windshield wiper, and like got stuck there, or that birds, when I dreamt about birds. And then I had this whole episode where I was visiting my mother in Florida, in Boca Raton, and I was on the beach and I thought to myself, I wonder if Koby's soul, like, would he want to come to America with me? Or would he just stay in Israel? Like, would Florida interest him at all? And then I sat down and I was eating a sandwich and a bird came and knocked me on the head. So, like, I just had so many things with birds. And then I dreamt about a bird. And no, I dreamt that I talked to God. And also, I'm not a dream person either. It's not like I remember my dreams all the time.
It's a merit. It's a zchut to have dreams.
Right.
It's a zchut, and it's very meaningful.
Right. So the dream I had was that I dreamt that I was talking to God. And I said to God, how can you say that you're a God of mercy? And I said, I don't see it. And he said, I am a God of mercy. And I said, I don't see it. And he said, I do the mitzvah of shiluach haken, of shooing away the mother bird when you take the baby bird. So once I learned that, like, you do the mitzvah of shooing away the mother bird when you take the baby bird, it was like, what is that? And then I went to learn with a friend, an Israeli friend, and she said to me, I'm teaching Shiluach, she taught Torah. I'm teaching Shiluach Hakem this week. Is it okay if we learn that? And I hadn't even said anything to her. And then I went and I learned with a friend in the Old City. And I told her what had happened. And we learned Kabbalah. And she said, we learned that there's something called the bird's nest, like the supernal bird's nest, Ken Sipur Lamala. And in that bird's nest, Mashiach waits to redeem the world. And he flies in and out to see if the world is ready. And what is in that bird's nest, the supernal bird's nest, are pictures of the first and second temple and pictures of all the children who died Kiddush Hashem, who died sanctifying God's name. So then I went home, and it was like almost Koby's yortzeit. And there was a bird's nest, like all of a sudden I saw in front of my front door. And during the yortzeit, there were like 4 birds that came out and were flying around.
Wow.
And it was more like I felt like God or Koby was sending me messages, but it was also like, I felt like this is just bigger than me. You know what I mean? It's bigger than my personal grief. Like, it's a national story. And I think that's what we're in now, is this huge story.
Yeah. Since
October 7th, that we're in another chapter of the story that maybe, I hope, is like the climax of the story, that will lead us towards something that is good, that we don't understand. But there's something about, I think, like you asked about how I got attracted to Judaism, and I think it's that you're part of a story. The Torah is a story. Every Shabbos, really, we're reading a chapter of that story. All the holidays are part of that story. And
Israel is part of the story.
And Israel is such a big story.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that has really been significant for me over this last year is the connection between the Torah, Am Yisrael, and Eretz Yisrael. How we're all 3 so intertwined with each other. We're just all one being. And
right.
When I look at what's been going on this past year, I feel like the story is about Am Yisrael. It's about the people. It's not about the government, and it's not about the war. It's about the beating heart of Am Yisrael and our continuation here in Israel. And when I remember part of in your book when you were talking about the meaning of why Koby was killed a little bit, and how we don't always know what God's plan is. And you talked about Gamzu Latova. Like, how could you say that this was for the good? But we only see what the reasoning is, or the pattern, after a long period of time. And I wanted to know from you now, 23 years later, do you still have those images of the symbolism? Do you see the pattern, the reason of why that it happened? Can you make sense of the experience now?
No.
No?
No, I think it's only in the world to come
Yeah.
that you that you can understand, because like I would never say it was good. Maybe I mean, good things happened as a result of it, but I would never say it was good. And I just feel like that's emunah, is to believe that someday it will be good. You know, I feel like I've been pretty good during this war in terms of protecting myself so that I can keep functioning. And also,
Has it been hard for you?
it wasn't, I was okay even though hard things happened, I was okay up until last week. But last week, you know, we run Mother's Healing Retreats, and we have groups that continue. And we have had a group that does psychodrama, and it's been together for 10 years with Sippy Cedar. She's the facilitator. And one of the women in the group, like our foundation, at first we worked only with terror victims' families. So like bereaved siblings and widows and widowers and bereaved parents from terror. But then terror like diminished. So then we just did, it's called civilian death. But like tragedies, because our main project is a camp for kids. So it was mostly for kids who lost family members in tragic ways. So this woman, Orit, she's been in the group because her daughter was killed. She was standing outside of Elazar and she was run over, her daughter. And now last week, her son, Dotan, is a soldier, and he was killed in the fighting last week. So when I went to the Shiva, I just felt like, you know, God is asking too much of us and too many people. And it's just too much, because now she's left with one child, and the pressure on that son to help his parents and to be able to, you know, bring happiness back to the family. Because what I learned was that Dotan was the son who brought a lot of happiness to the family. I'm sure the other son, his name is Guy, I'm sure he also did. But to be left in that situation with, she also had a baby die at 2 weeks.
Why, poor woman.
So going there and just, you know, for me too, the fear of like, it's just too much anxiety. And also all the mothers in the group with her are, you know, we're all devastated, like really devastated. So, and Orit said to me, what am I going to do? When I hugged her, and, you know, there are no answers.
What do you say to people like that? I remember also, I'm sorry that I keep bringing it up, but I feel like I really learned so much about you. Like, I feel like I know you so well just from that book, just from you wrote so beautifully, and I really related. So when people ask you, how did you get over that experience, or like your friend, how do I get over this? What advice do you give them?
Well, you don't get over it.
How do you deal with it?
I mean, there's no answer. And also, like, sometimes I just pray when I go there, like, give me the words. But then I didn't say anything, because what am I going to say? There's nothing to say.
Now, 23 years later, you still think about him every single day.
I think about him, but it's not like carrying him on a cross, you know?
Yeah.
It's more like he would be like 37 now. So and thank God I'm so busy with my life that, you know, there's just lots of places I don't really go.
Okay.
Because it's just not productive. And also, it is a really long time, and I have grandchildren now, so I'm like busy with my kids and grandchildren, and my work and my life.
Um, Tekoa, Israel. Did you feel guilty moving here at the time?
I don't think guilt is the word, because guilt means I did something wrong, and I never thought I did anything wrong. Like, I even in the Parsha this week, I read something that like every generation has to fight for Israel. And so maybe I was naive and a little stupid, but on the other hand, I learned that every mother that loses a child feels guilty, no matter what. And you also, I think anytime anybody dies, like you always feel a little guilty, like I could have done more, I should have done more. But I really do. I think like one of my strengths usually is that I don't go into places that aren't going to help me.
The price that we pay for living in Israel and our kids. I mean, your son was killed. My children are fighting in Gaza. When I made Aliyah, I knew that Israel wasn't the safest place, but I don't know why that I didn't make the connection that I would maybe have to be sacrificing my children to live here. Mm-hmm. And I often ask myself, is it worth it? Is it worth it? When the war started and my sons went off to war, I had like a breakdown because I was like, I'm not willing to sacrifice my son. I'm not. And you didn't no one asked you, I
don't think anybody's willing. I mean,
I know, but this is the price that we have. This is the realistic situation. This is the reality we live in.
Right.
So you decided to stay in Tekoa after it happened. Did you want to leave?
I thought about it, but like my kids didn't want to go. And where would we go? We might have gone to Jerusalem. I wasn't going to go back to America. And I don't know, like even now, like you said, is it worth it? I think it's like a different paradigm than is it worth it? Because it's in your soul. It's like there's the body and the soul. And the soul has its needs and desires too. So that I think a lot of people who come here, especially who make Aliyah, we don't even realize why we're coming.
Yeah.
That it's something is speaking to like the Jewish neshama, saying, like come to where you can be Jewish and you can live in a Jewish country and have a Jewish calendar and speak Hebrew and have a life that you would never have anywhere else.
Right. I was just speaking to my mom about this over Shabbat. And
where is she?
She lives in Yerushalayim, in Jerusalem, but I live in Modin, so she came over to my house for Shabbat. And we were talking about how, when I used to go visit her in Canada, because she made Aliyah maybe 10 years ago, my kids were little and we used to go to the mall and walk around and my kids were like, I want an ice cream. I wanted this. And I'd be like, you can't, and they're like, why not?
Uh-huh.
Well, like, why not? Like in Israel, it's like, there's no borders. Like you want, obviously if you don't want your kid to have ice cream, he doesn't have ice cream, but kashrut and stuff like that, it's all taken for granted. I mean, it's beautiful that it's our culture is our country.
Right.
So yeah, I feel like all of those things are all connected. I want to talk to you a little bit about the foundation.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, when there is a pigur or something, and you have a family who has a child who's in a terrorist attack, who contacts you? Do you contact them? Do they contact you? Or
well, it depends. Now with this war, mm-hmm. there's a lot of organizations working. Mm-hmm. So we don't go in the beginning. You know, we don't go to Shiva. We're more afterwards reaching out.
Mm-hmm.
But we are now collaborating with a lot of like other organizations, like the Revacha, the Social Security in like the towns, like in Sderot and Ofakim, and like we partner with the places
Mm-hmm.
to work with the families.
So they kind of put you guys together. The Rivacha will put you together, or give them an option.
Yeah, we also work with like another organization, about a resilience organization.
Mm-hmm.
So we just have a lot of connections now.
Mm-hmm.
And then also what we do, I think, because like now my daughter runs the foundation, but because we are bereaved families, like what we do, I think is very like sensitive
Mm-hmm.
to the needs of the families.
Uh-huh.
And we kind of read what they need. So we're on the ground with them. You know what I mean? We're not coming from above.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I forget what that's called. It's some organizational model, but it's like common ground.
Okay. What are the programs that you have?
So we have camps for bereaved children, and we had a special camp this summer for kids from the war and from October 7th. And then we have retreats for bereaved mothers.
Where are the camps? All over the country? Or is there one camp that everyone comes to?
No, it's a sleepaway camp.
Oh, it's a sleepaway camp.
Yeah, it's a week.
Okay.
It's a
Oh.
week-long sleepaway camp.
Oh, okay.
So it's actually in a pneumonia, in a dormitory in Petah Tikva now. But we just rent it out. We've been in various places, many different places. And like then we do retreats. We have somebody who donates he has like guest cottages, and he donates his facility to us, and it's beautiful. His name is Menachem Mendelovich. So we have retreats for up to 25 women at his place. And then we have the retreats, we rent out hotels or other places. And then we do day things too for our graduates, our Bogrim. And then we have programs for bereaved siblings who are like in their 20s and 30s. And they do cooking classes with them, and we have like Tiulim days, Hugim, and we have psychodrama and mosaics. And so we have a lot of projects going on.
Wow.
Almost every day there's something going on.
Wow. What advice do you have for families who are going through a hard time, who don't necessarily feel comfortable contacting you or the foundation?
Oh, they should contact the foundation. That's what I say when I speak. You can't do this alone. It's too much for a family. It's too much for an individual. You can't just depend on your family. You need a bigger support network, and you need to be with people who have gone through it. So, but we reach out to people.
Yeah.
We reach out to people. In the beginning of the war, my book is also in Hebrew.
Oh, wow.
So we sent the book to, I think, over 200 like families who had lost somebody in the Nova or the war. And my main message is you will survive, but you need support.
Yeah. Do you walk around here with a gun?
No.
No?
No.
Do you feel safe walking around here?
In Tekoa?
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing has ever happened in Tekoa. So, well, that's not exactly true. Somebody did try to break it. Like there was a terrorist who tried to come into the yishuv, but it's everybody gets to feel safe basically where they are, except like now the north. You can't feel safe in the north. So
I know, it's crazy. So you said since the war, you've had a lot more people joining the program?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, there's intense need right now. There's intense trauma, and we're taking care of the families who are most affected, whose kids were murdered.
From the Nova Festival or in the kibbutzim?
Everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
Wow.
And soldiers too. I did a retreat. I led a retreat for mothers of soldiers who they say fell, who were killed in this war. And we did it in English. Like,
wow.
There are so many English-speaking families whose loved ones have been murdered in this war. So we did it in English, and it's because I was trained as a bereavement, and as a pastoral counselor and a bereavement counselor, that I could run that group.
Wow.
But I write children's books. So I spend a lot of time writing children's books.
That's what you do primarily now, is write books?
Yeah.
Wow.
And dance.
And dance?
Dance and write children's books.
Okay. What about your husband, Seth?
So Seth now, he retired from the foundation,
mm-hmm.
but we're still involved because it's my daughter, so we're always consulting with her. And like, I speak at at most of the events. Seth also speaks. So he acts more as a consultant.
How old was she again? Eliana, do you say her name?
How old is she now?
No, how old was she when
Koby was
died?
killed? She was, I think, 10.
Does she remember vividly the experience?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How do you think it affected her in the long run?
You'd have to talk to her about that. You should talk to her.
Okay.
But she's amazing because she is able to run a whole foundation and help, hundreds of people all the time.
Was she always involved?
Yeah, because she started out as a camper.
Uh-huh.
Then she became a counselor. And then she was a rakezet. And
mm-hmm.
then she worked for us for a year. But after COVID, after the pandemic, Seth and we decided we were finished with the foundation because it's a lot of pressure to have to raise money. Like, you're responsible for paying everybody and you have to get that money.
mm-hmm.
You have to raise it through donations. So
there's no subsidization from the government or anything like that?
Very little. Hopefully she'll be able to get it now.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully. I hope she's working on that.
Yeah, because you have a whole population that has trauma.
Right.
Huge trauma.
Right, but we're working with the first degree.
No, no, I know that. That's what I mean. You have people who have the first degree trauma, a lot.
Right. But so my husband said to her, we said we were closing down the foundation. And she said, no, you're not. And we're like, who's going to run it? She said, I am. And my husband said, I don't want you to do that. It's too much pressure. She has 4 little kids. It's like, don't do that to yourself. There's nights you can't sleep because you don't know how you're going to pay the staff. And she said, I'm going to do it. And she did it.
Wow, that's incredible. It's incredible. I don't remember if it was you or Seth's initiative of starting the foundation, but how you guys took the experience that you had and you turned it into helping so many other people. It's such a huge mitzvah.
Yeah.
It
keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Unfortunately, I'm sorry to say that. I want you to be successful, but I also don't want...
It was like, okay, we've done... No, Eliana said, we can't close it down because we're helping too many people.
Yeah.
And she's involved with the people. She always knew all the people. Like Dotan, who was killed, he came to our camp.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was one of the campers. We have a picture of him, and he's with his counselor. And his counselor's name was Tiferet, and she was murdered at the rave.
Oh, me, oh, my.
So, another counselor was killed also. It's all very close.
You said before that you dance and you write books, which I think is very healthy to find a balance, mm-hmm. because when the work that you were doing was just surrounded by so much trauma and negativity and horrible things that have happened.
Yeah, but negativity isn't the right word, because it's pain.
Okay.
It's painful.
Pain.
But like, for example, when I used to hire people to work with us, I always waited for this sentence that they would say. And so many of them said that it would be an honor for them to work for the foundation. And I feel like there's something about being able to hold pain and hold other people's pain that it's like something holy. So not that I wish pain on anybody, and not that I want to be holding other people's pain, but it gets back to that truth, like the Baruch Dayan et Haemet. There's some truth that's being shared, and there's a connection that's very deep in terms of like the soul. There's that soul connection where you can really, it's almost like you become one with the other person because you're there when they're broken. So you're holding like their pieces for them when they need you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But then they go on to help other people. Like with our women, we always know they're better when they say, no, I can't come because I'm studying something, or, I'm involved in this project. And actually you see a lot of that now with memorial projects, with Hansacha projects, that much more than we used to see because of social media,
mm-hmm.
that people can come up with an initiative and find people to support them like very readily.
I know you said it's a holy experience to be there with people when they're going through this, but I think it's also in terms of treating, it's very necessary to meet the pain, to be with the pain, and not to pretend that it's not happening or overlook it. Like one of the reasons I started this podcast was because I felt a certain amount of desperation with what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And then I said, you know what, I'm going to start a podcast and I'm going to have it entertaining and fun. And it's going to be, uplifting and everything. And then I thought to myself, the way that you deal with pain is that you actually meet it at where it's at. You have to sit with it and work through it. And so my previous guest also, I said the same thing to her. I met with Nurit Davidi, who's the wife of Alon Sderot. And she also has her story of what happened on October 7th. I want to meet the reality of the pain, the core of the pain with people, so that not just me, but Am Yisrael, we can deal with what's going on and not to ignore with what's going on. This is part of our story.
Right.
Right?
No, you always, like, part of pastoral counseling is you're just present,
mm-hmm.
because you can receive what the person is giving you.
Mm-hmm.
And when somebody is received fully, then they can, I don't like the word move on, because you don't move on,
No.
you move with, but then there's the possibility of movement. But if that pain is never expressed, or if it doesn't find like some sort of container, then it's like a cannibal, a wild animal. It chases you the rest of your life, and you're always like trying to run away from it.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I read a statistic that people in mental hospitals, like 20% of them are there because of some unresolved grief in their childhood or early life.
Yeah, I think it's really important, and I hope that meeting you and our viewers watching you also you'll be a source of inspiration for them as well. Because seeing you now, I mean, you look really beautiful and you're smiling and laughing, and it's really good to see that you've moved forward with your life. You've accomplished a lot of things in your life, and you didn't let the pain hold you down. You
Right.
know?
The pain is part of it. It's like I say that, like sadness and happiness, they're not opposites. You can have both. And just because you're sad doesn't mean you can't be happy. Like a lot of people, they let the sadness win. But it's like you can say hello, you're here too. But you're not gonna be the only visitor in my life.
Right. Do you have a message that you want to give to people? Is there something that you want to say to people?
Well, just this image came up for me we were in Sweden once, and it was the summer, but people were getting ready for winter. And so they were like stocking up wood already, you know? And I thought to myself, like, everybody stocks things up in their life. What are you going to stock up in your life? You know, what are you going to put into your mind? What are you going to put in your brain? Like, is it going to be things that build you? Or is it going to be resentment and pain and anger? And like, we're all built of all these experiences, and it's really important to let those good experiences in, like to sort of stock your wheelhouse with the things that are going to build you.
That's a beautiful message. I want to thank you so much for giving me this time and talking about Koby, and I hope that it'll be a positive blessing for everybody in this country, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Sherri.
Thank you.
It was nice to meet you.
You too.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.